The hip-hop writer is a creator composing understanding words of cultured brilliance, powering a rebalance of the elements equally. Pages of rejuvenated reaffirmation, simply the almighty leadership of insightful craft work that stands to build through any confrontation born to be. Yet his daily duty is as a journalist that questions properly and uses his ears to filter the real. And as the art decays by dilution, he concentrates the best again and again, exposing it in the print. Today's journalist and tomorrow's historian. He listens to share. Here is that necessary attempt executed again and again and again. This is the Power Right Show on S.STREET Media. This is your brother, the lone low life with the home-sewn garment, the Boricua with the build, the true and living God stepping in score. Sunya's Allah, a.k.a. Skillistradalo, and we're on S.STREET Media, the evolution of media, where every intrigue will have its own show, every incredible thought will have its own episode, and every timeless insight will be archived. And as I always say, this show is about my element of hip-hop, what I like to call the writer of art on art and science on music. And it's the only show in history that I know of on this hip-hop writer element that I, a veteran of over a quarter century, helped to pioneer in many ways. You know what I mean? And sounds blessed when you hear that intro from my brother Kevlar 7, Remembered in Perfection. And that was specifically made for me for this. You know, he gave it to me for this. You know what I mean? And only one other brother used it to exceptional effect. My brother Willie Ways used it. But let's start out with the good stuff and go forward. You know what I mean? We have had so many great guests that we haven't had a chance to catch up with all this music. I haven't had a chance to catch up with all this music. And with all the work I've been trying to get out to you. But there's a lot of good stuff out there. So let's start out with some of the stuff that you ought to know about. First, what you ought to know about is my shit. I got new books out. I got The Reel of 2020. It's an ebook I wrote about 2020's hip hop universe. Really, it isn't a list. It isn't a list that's picking the best that, you know, just randomly based on my likes and dislikes or good arguments and leaving out all of the other things, and thus not really the scholarship or the details that we need to put our music in this history. In other words, you get a good let's assume it's a good best of list, quality stuff all throughout. Order is not too disagreeable, right? Because somebody will always find disagreement with order, you know, as they should. Justifications for everything. But it's going to miss too many records. The way this music is now, in this era I call the invisible renaissance, that I truly see is continuing into this decade, where the music is so great, so plentiful, and it is invisible to the masses. Even when the masses know that it exists, they only think it exists in small portions. You know, Griselda. Oh, that Rome Streets guy is good. You know, like, you might know 2 or 3 guys, you know, that pop out, that are really great. But it's a vast universe, you know what I mean? And everything that you're talking about, though, is just the tip of the glacier, you know? And how do we put that in a historical context of all this great stuff, you know what I mean? There's no way that one person can do it all by themselves, but I certainly can be that, what we say off air? That Ricky Henderson, you know what I mean? And lead it off and be definitive in it. And this book ended up being, you know, me trying to just share what I thought was great to a complete 70-page analysis of the best musicians and artists in hip-hop today that had released work in 2020. And I bracketed it in a revolutionary new system of ciphers that categorize the entire musical universe. So there'll be categories that seem generic on their own, but they're overlapping, and certain artists will overlap into different areas, and I write about them in the particular subject area or category that I want them to be focused on or that I have particular insights to highlight. You know, like, let's say I have a category I call the movement cornerstones. You know what I mean? You know, I have a category I call the movement cornerstones, and I have, for example, the God Planet Asia, Peace to God Power. and for different reasons than, say, I would have a Griselda in the movement cornerstones. You see? So when, even in understanding this movement, whoever's a movement cornerstone is different than others. You know what I mean? And I explain the differences in there. You know what I mean? And why they should be heralded and why they're so crucial to the music. Because in today's music, it isn't just about that one great record. Although the artists themselves, before even you listeners, you know, and we listeners are trying to get to that, the artists are always trying to make that great album. They're always trying to make that great record. You know what I mean? This is a universe of great hip hop that isn't just trying to make a hit record. You know what I mean? They're trying to make quality albums that are distinct from each other. And if you notice, you know, as a side note, a lot of the failures that people have in today's, we call them failures or missteps, is because they're trying so hard to make something different and make something to what they see is better than what they just made. The selling mandate hasn't just been to give them the formula, you know. Marley Marl said in an interview that he always had a particular formula when he made his beats. So even though his beats would be different, obviously, different samples and stuff, there were certain things in those beats that you always recognized, you know. I think this is something that most artists today, they have it naturally, that recurring theme or that recurring style. But they're always trying to destroy the entire mantelpiece and draw all over it again. I love it. But that book is out. You can Cash App me, Sunez. You can PayPal me at Sunez. Or you can DM me at Sunez on the IG or Sunez7 on the Twitter. You know, contact me. And I could, you know, walk you through getting that book from me. You know what I mean? I've only got it for $5, and anything up is your donation. And let me tell you something. A lot of people show me a lot of love and paid me a lot more than $5 for this book. You know what I mean? They appreciate the time and effort that I put in. And when you couple this book, though, with my paperback out, The Filtered Real, Essays from the Invisible Renaissance, you have clear, distinct documents that categorize and begin to categorize. You know, even in these books, I haven't even put in everybody that I think ought to be in there. So there's more works to come, but these are crucial. And when people look back at the history of our music, the history of hip-hop music, these books and others that I write are going to be crucial. You know what I mean? So get in with them. For those that order and buy the Reel of 2020 ebook from me, it's only going to be an ebook because I got more books coming out in paperback this year. It'll come with a free gift and also a exclusive offer. So you know, getting gear. You know what I'm saying? Because there's too much music. You know what I mean? As I always say, always shout out all my partner podcast, my brother DJ Toshi with Classic Storm Radio. We still got our last show up though, interviewing Steel. You know, we had Steel of Smith & Wesson. We got, I'm not going to say right now, but our next guest is going to be just as prolific. And of course, our last Power Right show, episode 83, was with Rome Streets. You know what I mean? Rome Streets might be with the most important album of the year, the biggest album of the year, maybe. You know what I mean? I don't really like to do that because, as you'll see, there's so many albums out there. You know what I mean? But before we get into all of these great albums that we've been missing out, I mean, it's just astronomical. I've got about 500 songs, maybe about 40 albums, 50. I don't know. It's in that range. You know, it's definitely reaching the 50s. Definitely reaching almost 50 albums easily. And we haven't even finished March yet. And I'm saying these aren't shitty records. These aren't throwaways. These are real, well-worked records. So, I'm going to start because I made a note last week about the Grammys. I'm going to put all my Grammy understanding in one context here. before we get into the winners and the losers and my hot take, I have a super hot take that everyone will disagree with. I'll probably lose about 1,000 followers on Instagram. Black Twitter will dethrone me, take away my stripes, whatever it is that they thought they were giving me. You know what I mean? But the interesting thing about the Grammys, right, is that the Grammys have no respect. They haven't had respect for music for a long time. And so they have tried to work it to be like the Oscars, where they would get some type of respectable music. The problem is that they can't do it on a singles level. Singles for music, especially because black music dominates, right? You can't have good music. You got to have shitty singles. So how do you get the respect back to the Grammys? Well, they didn't do it with hip-hop at first. All right, this is a new thing, you know, where you see Nas winning and you see, you know, MCs like Freddie Gibbs, you know, Freddie Gibbs getting a shot. Excuse me, and other guys. Who was on that list? You know, Royce the 5'9", Jay Electronica. I don't put Jay Electronica on anywhere near on my list, but you know, he's a lyrical miracle. You know what I mean? Talk about the spaceships and all that kind of shit. You know what I mean? Stuff that nobody wants to listen to. You know what I mean? That everybody, when they listen to him, they feel intelligent, even though he's not saying shit about the knowledge of self. You know what I mean? In the end, though, you're still dealing with a mystery god. You've got no clues. You know, don't you like those kind of albums where you think you're gonna get a jewel? You know, I used to buy records. I think my producer will understand this. When I was trying to get the knowledge, I'm from a neighborhood that didn't have the knowledge of self, but I was in Brooklyn. You know what I mean? So I was in Sunset Park, but I wasn't around the knowledge. So I wasn't living the type of Brooklyn life where you'd go down the block and somebody would slap you with degrees. You know what I mean? I had to go find the knowledge. So a lot of times, a lot of records were very crucial to me as far as like having clues. Realizing that Brand Nubian records meant much more, trying to analyze them. Trying to analyze, the peak for me was analyzing Woo Forever. You know what I mean? Other records, you know what I mean? By greats, you know, and Rakim records, you know what I mean? You're talking off air about Heavy Mental, trying to understand Heavy Mental. What does it all mean? You know what I mean? Maybe I can understand some of the stuff that's saying and learn more about myself, spiritually, mentally. You know what I mean? Who I am, where I fit in, though, in the context of my history, right? You're looking for some type of consciousness in records. But we get these records, right? And we get these records that people say they take all the titles of the true and living God. They take the titles of the Most High. And you don't learn a goddamn thing on the record. You don't learn shit. What'd you learn? So, don't give me a bar. That sounds fancy. Tell me what you learned. Like, what did you learn? You know? And you end up stepping away from the record, though, just waiting on a spaceship. You know what I mean? So you might as well just stay on the other. You're just on a corner, just like any old Christian waiting for Jesus. You know, on another corner, just like a rabbi waiting for the Messiah to come and all of that. It's really all the same. Waiting for the wheel of Ezekiel. You know what I mean? But even still, the records that were nominated for best record, best rap album were of a much higher quality than expected, but not Newfound. Remember they nominated Woo Forever. They nominated other records, you know what I mean, that were quality. They'll throw in a quality record with it, but never all quality. And they would always give it to the substandard, something that blatantly popped out. And certainly the rap songs are nothing to call home about. Big Sean, The Baby, Megan Thee Stallion. What type of music is this? Is this in the purview of the show here? Can I talk about this stuff? Because it sounds like some other shit. Drake, Lil Durk, Roddy Ricch, Travis Scott. All the shit is throwaway stuff. You know what I mean? Unless you had a great experience with them. These are songs you need a great experience with. You know what I mean? You need to have met the most fine woman out there to have a good experience with these songs. That's why people like them. Or this is music where people intend to go search for that great experience. You see what I'm saying? Whereas other type of music you need for like a solitary event. You know what I mean? But anyway, I digress. If you look at the other genres, the best genre to look and compare is the R&B genre. You know what I mean? They have continuously tried to put quality R&B albums into the discussion for Grammy and nominate that for Grammy, even whilst the R&B singles for Grammy will be more pop laden. They'll have a corny rapper on them. They'll be auto tuned out. They'll have little singing. But you'll get artists like Georgia Smith. You get artists like her. You get other artists like that are being noticed and recognized in the Grammy list. You know what I mean? Right? I don't know if, since I'm main favorites though, I don't know if Baby Rose was nominated for a Grammy last year or this year. But they'll use artists like that, quality artists, right? And this is how they bone it up. They get some respect. So now it was this year for them to really glide in and give the rap Grammys some respect. You know what I mean? Get some quality in there. And they succeeded well. You know what I mean? If you think, I think it's stupid to say that Nas sold out just so he could win a Grammy. I think that's dumb. You know what I mean? I think that this is the first year where you saw nearly all quality records that are not really like pop records being nominated. Records I dislike are in there, but none of them are bad quality. You know what I mean? And I'm being nice to D Smoke though, because that's not really a great record. And that's a toss. That's a toss right there. That's a toss. You know what I mean? You could toss that one. You know what I mean? The kid sounds like he's just doing a Kendrick Lamar imitation. You know, his voice and his vocals sound just like him. You know what I mean? It's hard to get into. You know what I mean? And you know how I feel like Kendrick Lamar. He sounds like he already sounds like Kevin Hart's they wasn't ready voice. You know what I mean? But the thing is, right? When you get these nominees like that, it gives some kind of respect and tone to the Grammys. Like I said, I have a detailed review of Nas's King's Disease. I haven't changed my thoughts on it at all. But I certainly don't think that he was trying to cross over. Here's why. King's Disease comes out in 1997. It's a piece of shit sellout record. It doesn't matter how many good records are on it. Back then, you didn't do 2, 3, 4 more commercial songs, spicy and all that kind of stuff. But you could do them in the post-Biggie era. You know what I mean? Once Biggie comes out, you could start doing hardcore B-side, pop A-side. You know what I mean? So it's a record that probably would be slandered in 97, 96. Maybe accepted, who knows? Right? But nowadays, guys don't put 2 or 3 more pop-leaning records. They put them all. You know what I mean? So the problem is the same things with all. It's still, I saw it still more as experimentation that fails, as opposed to records that aren't good. I think this, in retrospect, about Nas's King Disease, just like I say about all of Nas's catalog, whether you think the album is great, good, or medium, you can pretty much say to a consistency that every single album he releases has at least 5 exceptional, might be classic songs on it. Now you multiply that by 10, you got artists that, you got a guy that has at least 50 classic songs. I'm not talking about 50 bangers. I'm not talking about 50 really good songs. I'm talking about 50 classic records that have lyricism, song concepts, techniques that no one else really is reaching. And the people that do reach it may not reach it as often. And if they do, they're also on that GOAT candidate discussion level. You know what I mean? So all Nas records are worthy. You know what I mean? They're all worthy. You know, just delete Spicy. You know, just delete Big Sean. You know what I mean? You'll be all right. You know, and fight through the autotune. I always feel like an old man when autotune creeps up on my speakers, though. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm trying to wear a motorcycle jacket and head out into town though, and you know. But here's some hot takes. I enjoy Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak as Silk Sonic. That's not a hot take. That's pretty obvious. I think that almost nothing that they're doing is next level, but it's done so well that now that he's working with Anderson .Paak, there's actually the possibility you might hear something that you've never heard before. So I'm actually very excited about that, because I think maybe I'm just guessing here, maybe with Anderson .Paak though, it goes more into the soul funk groove and leans out of the pop aspects, which Bruno Mars does so fluidly. You know, he's so fluid at popping out his records skillfully. You know what I mean? But I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that whole performance. I look forward to listening to it. I look forward to enjoying that. You know what I mean? Again, the Nas win, people argued it should be Freddie Gibbs and stuff. Freddie Gibbs is not a better record. It isn't a better record, you know what I mean, than the Nas one. Again, like all Nas records, compared to Freddie Gibbs' best records, Freddie Gibbs doesn't make any mistakes. Nas makes mistakes on his records, but Nas hits higher peaks. You know what I mean? So, I mean, there's no way around that. You know what I mean? What do you choose? And that's why people have the argument, though. You know what I mean? Because Freddie Gibbs doesn't really make a bad record. You know, but he doesn't hit the peaks Nas has. You know what I mean? And it's unfair to expect anyone to hit those peaks. But I saw an interesting stat, though. Let's give it a hot take, though, so everybody could just stop watching the podcast and say it's some bull. I heard that Beyonce officially has the most Grammys by any woman, beating Alison Krauss. And I'm doing this hot take on purpose, though, so that way you actually take the time, though, because, you know, over here in this show, we deal with knowledge, though. So don't give me that wisdom knowledge shit and dismiss Alison Krauss, and you probably never heard her, let alone any bluegrass, right? But I will make one hot take that's probably true. Alison Krauss's Grammys are more for the totality of her works than for the singles that she has driven out. She is a more album-driven artist. She has her Grammy list is more based on albums that she has made, and also musicianship, because he's won quite a few Grammys just for instrumentals, being part of the band. And I will say this, though, because this is my big argument, though, and this is why it's a hot take. I think Alison Krauss is a better artist than Beyonce. The reason I say this, though, is you take all the bells and whistles and the show tunes and the hottiness and everything like that. Beyonce doesn't do what I always wanted a soul singer should do. They should be primarily based in having exceptional skill at the ballad. And I think when time goes and looks back at her era, I'm not talking about all time, because it's not even fair. But if you go in her era, Beyonce's not even the best, or even one of the best balladeers of her generation of R&B singers. Unless now you want to go with the Grammys, though, and do what they do, because the Grammys is very slick. I forget the name of it, but they use two terms. They give you two R&B albums. They give you an urban contemporary R&B album, and then they give you the urban, I don't know what they call it. It's an urban R&B album, and then they give you they give you the contemporary. So soul singers like Ledisi, who won the Grammy, will win it. Her, who's really so great at giving you real soul music, but appealing to the other demographics, she'll still get the contemporary stuff. You know what I mean? I'm gonna look that up right now. Let me see what they call that, because I think it serves well here. On Wikipedia, though, they got 1 million categories, so it'll take me forever to get in there. Yeah, so when you get into R&B, you have best R&B album, and then you have best progressive R&B album. What the hell does that mean, though? It means that the good R&B album is going to be in the progressive, And then the R&B album that's going to be shit. It's going to be, I need Nicki Minaj on this. I need Megan Thee Stallion talking. I need Drake on this. I need all the pop people. And, we don't give a slither about quality singing, though. It's going to be auto-tuned. We could do whatever we want. It's going to be bells and whistles. That's going to be your best R&B album. You know what I mean? And let me see if I got them right, though. Yeah, so R&B album, it looks here. Let's see who won it here. Yeah, John Legend. I can't even talk about John Legend because I got to keep awake for this podcast. You know what I mean? So R&B album was John Legend. Let's see who won R&B album, progressive R&B. So interesting. I had it wrong, though. They misused the word progressive. So the progressive label is actually for the shit pop record, which is real clever, though. You know what I'm saying? It's real clever, though. You know what I mean? And then best R&B albums for, like, people do it more, contemporary. We call it contemporary album because let me tell you something. Look at these winners here. Lizzo is not progressive. That's not progressive music. Lizzo. Thundercat, that's not progressive music. The Carters, that's not progressive. You know what I mean? Beyonce's Lemonade, the Weeknd albums, which are not, that would be the closest, right? The Weeknd to being a progressive R&B, actual R&B album. But anyway, the point is that the Grammys found a way to have quality music in there so they don't lose all legitimacy. Whereas they really couldn't do it with the Grammys and make like a progressive rap album. That would be too blatant. You know what I mean? Especially the way rap is talked about. You know what I mean? So they go, what do? The R&B rap album will be for quality. Singles will be for trash. And there you go. I just gave you the whole Grammy lowdown. You know what I mean? If you thought Megan Thee Stallion was exceptional in the Grammys, though, then you were watching the Grammys and not listening to the Grammys. But that's what you do. That's what you do, right? You watch the Grammys. You don't listen to the Grammys. You know what I mean? So that's the whole point, though. So these are my hot takes on the Grammys. And if you even do get a chance and you want to defame me and stuff, listen to Alison Krauss, whether her solo albums or the stuff with Union Station. You know what I mean? She has a beautiful voice. I know that when it gets into the bluegrass up-tempo, a lot of people can't get with that. You know what I mean? You got to have an ear for that. You know what I mean? But she's a great singer and has a much better mastery of the ballad. And I think that Alison Krauss is a greater singer in her genre than Beyonce is in her genre. You know what I mean? In R&B and soul, Beyonce is really just a diva. You know what I mean? Big time diva, though. Big time diva. You know what I mean? So I think I've shitted on that enough. Let's go on to like the real music. You know what I mean? So we go on to the Grammys, to the real music. You know what I mean? And again, a lot of great music this year. I want to start out, last week with our interviews, I get to focus on great records. But what happens is I miss even mentioning a lot of other great records. You know what I mean? So I go backwards I'll start with the most recent that I've gotten and go backwards. Real quick note. We had Rome Streets last week, so Death and the Musician has obviously got to be on your list of albums to get. But DJ Muggs is already working and promoting the release of the Flea Lord. He's doing an album, Flea Lord. And he also released an instrumental album he called Dies Occidendum, and he under the title DJ Muggs, the Black Goat. Really nice album, though. Really nice album. DJ Muggs' instrumental albums are atmospheric. They're not really beat albums. You know what I mean? They're not albums where you go, look, I want to hear that beat for years, and other MCs would be like, I need to rap on that. Unless you're Ka, you know what I mean? Like, maybe Ka will get open, and rap on that. But they're really atmospheric, the whole vibe that he has, the whole dark vibe that he has. In other words, a lot of these instrumentals, you could see and envision them being in between cuts of other albums that he does. Like, You know, if he extended Rome Street's albums or Cypress Hill's next albums, you know what I mean? But you know, always great stuff. King Arthur, you know, the God King Arthur and Zagnif Nori, those brothers known each other for a long time. They released a mixtape on YouTube to get you familiar, and then they released an all new Killer's Manual. I've had the joy of having this album for a while, you know what I mean? And there's so much good on it, you know what I mean? The back and forth ease that they have is because they see alike on a lot of issues. You know, the way they go back and forth, their militant mindsets, their hardcore mindsets, the obsession with throwing new techniques each song, and then also the beat selection. A lot of diverse beat makers, but you got a lot of unity out of it though. And some of the songs here, I only gave it like 1 or 2 listens really well. So the times I've been listening to them, I've actually haven't been sitting down to write about them. But some of these songs are exceptional, you know what I mean? And they deserve the fine-tooth comb to go through them. The thing I like about this record is that it helps highlight their ability for liveness, you know, in the hardcore realm, you know, and it's definitely a must-have. These are 2 of the best MCs out. They had 2. Zagnif Nori had an incredible run last year of EPs. King Arthur had a great album with Insurgent Theory. And I think that mindset of Insurgent Theory is what he tapped Zagnif into, and he leads the way on this. You know, even the album covers, you know, like those old, you know, the old, you know, like the way they put design the government, you know, manuals, you know, army manuals, you know. And I can't remember what song it was though, but that track where they sampled Ghost Dog clips and aphorisms from the Hagakure from the movie, man, they really went in on that. And they got songs going up tempo, down tempo, back and forth cuts. So they do the duo. It's just a great record. And the thing is, this last week or so has had so much great hardcore music. Look how I follow it up. The exceptional Ribs album. Rikers Island Boxing School is the acronym, Ribs. And Spit Gems, FU, you know what I mean? Just great music, you know what I mean? And again, all of these albums that I'm talking about, probably the only argument that I have is that they're too short. But because they have such intense replay value, you know, I could see, you know, getting in my 1 to 2 hour workout, hearing this about 3 or 4 times, you know what I mean? It's really that next level. One of the things that makes Rikers Island Boxing School so real is that Spit Gems and FU really are, you know, they really are athletes. They really are fighters. They really are hardcore MCs. They really are about in-depth rhymes. You know what I mean? So the metaphor to hip-hop works perfectly. And it works literally. And that's why it's such a great record. You know what I mean? Some of these verses, though, they're, you know, FU is as charismatic as ever, and Spit Gems is layering his verses and would repeat listens songs like Martha, you know, and that verse he has on Rifle Experts, which is in the video now. I mean, these are stellar verses, though. Like, there's time and effort taken into this. You know what I mean? It wasn't just like, hey, we got a great name for a group and stuff. Let's do this. This is a duo I would love to see more records of, you know, even though I want to see more of all the Broken Home together, the clique that they're both part of. I definitely would like to see more of the records with just them 2 as Ribs, because it's necessary. And, of course, the features, A1 also of Broken Home, and Nem's got to go in an album like this. It all works out. Great album. Great album. And there's so much more to say. I know in other outlets and stuff, I'll be able to build on it even more, whether it's written or if it's future interviews, building with them. But there's a lot to say about this album. And it's just like Killer's Manual with Zagnif. If you only got a little bit of money to spend, you can't go wrong with the records I'm talking about now. Like if you only choose one of these records that I'm talking about, you won't go wrong. You just get one this week, get another one next week. You know what I mean? Do it like we used to do in the 90s, you know? We used to get one record a week, you know? And we'd be good. Another great album, though, and in the great run is Supreme Cerebral. Peace to the God. What's the name of this album, though? It's got Recognize, Real, doing the beats. And Recognize Real actually has a lot of work out there and unreleased work that I've already been blown away by. But he does this whole album. It's called Gold Chain Warrior. The artwork is beautiful. Excuse me. The artwork is beautiful. The songs in this album, though, is very short. Really like the other ones as well. 10 songs. They're not going long. Most of the songs don't reach 3 minutes. But they're not giving you 3/16s. They're giving you 1 or 2 quality 16s. You know what I mean? And they're exceptional. You know what I mean? Planet Asia on GCM Gods. You know, I think he literally quotes, you know, if you got the knowledge of stuff, he literally, on this track, Planet Asia, he quotes the 10th degree in the 1 to 40. It's not a rhyme. He just quotes the degree. And it sounds like a bar. Like it sounds like bars. You know, that's how on point they were on this record. You know what I mean? And one of the highlights is that Culture Freedom, the cut with Rashid Chappelle, John Robinson, Elo Kush. I mean, that's a real highlight of the year, you know, having all those brothers on it, though. You know, and then Rashid is on it again. All of these. And then they preview the next record that him and Elo Kush will do by throwing on Clark Darts at the end. You know, and lately everything Elo Kush has been on has been really great. These MCs like Rashid, Chappelle, MCs like Elo Kush, MCs like John Robinson, who's been doing it since the Dark Ages. He's a Dark Ages legend, one of the greats out of the Dark Ages. Catalog over 300 songs easily. They have such a command, though, of the slow tempo. You know what I mean? That they make their voice an instrument. It's just really compelling to hear. You know what I mean? And then when they have lyrics like they do in the content. And what I love about Supreme Cerebral albums is that he can layer his records so well, and he can put so much ideas into a record, so much content, and mix that so much with brutality. Just 100% violence. You know what I mean? It's just fun to listen to. You know, it's some of the most fun, insightful, yet extremely explicit records you'll ever hear. You know, that's Supreme Cerebral. You know, there's not too many people that can do it like that. You know, and his layering and his coupling of verses, yeah, he's one of the best doing it now. You know what I mean? And he has a song called The Best, and it's great. But Recognize Real, I didn't write any notes on that came out, but everything Recognize Real does is really good. He has a real, you know, he's one of those producers that thickens the atmosphere around him. You know what I mean? So the beats always sound thick. They always have a drive to them. So they're perfect for all tempos. Because Supreme doesn't stay in one tempo. You know what I mean? He goes in all tempos. He's really, you know, exceptional. And then now, look, we'll probably get into the deepest MC maybe all time. I mean, I said this last year with those 3 albums that he released. I said he's my personal MC of the year because it was just too much. I listen to those records all the time and get something new. But Killer Priest immediately came back with Lord Son Heavy Mental 1.1. What a fucking record, man. You know, what a record. Because it's really way out there. That doesn't even have a context with Killer Priest. You know what I mean? But he has one song where he's just slow flowing and he's just got the kung fu sample going. Just the fight. You know what I mean? Just a and he's just rhyming over that. Like he's just rhyming over that. You know what I mean? And on this record, the main difference with Lord Son Heavy Mental, if you wanted a contrast from the great albums he released last year, is that he's going more into the persona of the epic character in biblical history. You know what I mean? That lore is what he's capturing easily on every record. And it's just, I've only heard, I could tell you that that there is very rarely a Killer Priest record that I could feel I've heard enough unless I've heard it 10 times. And I have not heard this album 10 times, you know? And for today's work, this isn't a short album. You know what I mean? It still is going to run you about 40 to 50 minutes. So for today's attention span and for the amount of depth that he put into, it's a juggernaut album. That's like a double album today with people's attention span. Because these albums I've been talking about, they run real short. They run very, very short. I'll give you another short album. We're talking about short albums. And it's being, you know, like, I consider it an EP because it's really too short. But, what was it? I wanted to get to it. But, Heist Life. You know what I mean? But Heist Life has added or highlighted a new member. Probably not a new member to them, but a new member to us. So it's comprised of Ty to Dale. It's comprised of Ty to Dale, Sauce Heist, and Baby Maine. So when I was listening to the record, Baby Maine was really who I was thinking about. You know what I mean? For me, Baby Maine was going to be the weak link. He's the one that can mess up this record for me because I've heard Ty to Dale says everything great. He has a way of saying everything gutter. You know what I mean? Sauce Heist, he's already an expert. You know, but Baby Maine had a lot of great energy, and he really matches that whole vibe that they have. You know, it feels like I feel like the recording studio that they record in is not indoors. It's on the corner of some random Kennedy Fried Chicken in Pelon, you know, in the Bronx, you know. It's like they just put the booth right there in front of it, and they just record everything right there. They really get that essence, you know what I mean? And to say, you know, there's a lot of skits on here, so there's really not that many songs. But songs like Yola, Four Devils, Hat Trick, these are all incredible, you know what I mean? And they're great beat pickers, masters of their own tempos. And with a lot of music, though, it's about the vibe, and they capture that vibe. So, you know, as all records that these brothers do are really, really great. You know what I mean? I'm always open on these records. Let's talk about another record that I want to have these people, you know, these artists here as guests eventually, and we're working on it. I was trying to get them all three together. I might have to get them all separately or in duos and solos separately. But the Bad Seed, Honey De Niro, and Stuck B. They made an album, Kill Switch 2, The Devil's Rejects. It's a lot. It's not. It's in the vein of Kill Switch because Kill Switch gives a lot of characters. It has storylines, but this one definitely goes different. And I want to listen to them again to try to follow the stories, because these first couple of listens I've been blown away by just the beat picking. And lately I have been and I wrote about this in my book, Reel of 2020. I have been very impressed, to say the least, at how incredible a prime or another peak that the Bad Seed is on. Everything he is doing sounds incredible. You know, Bad Seed, when you talk to him, when I interviewed him one time, he's very focused on the way the MC sounds. And he's very good at making anything sound good. So he's very cognizant and very aware of his voice as an instrument. So it's not always about what he's saying. It has to be as an instrument. And I think that working with Honey De Niro, that has rubbed off on her even exceptionally, because Honey De Niro's best verses were about her projection and intensity. Now she's got a lot more vocal presence where she can inflect more. And I don't think that's just Bad Seed. I think that's the life that she has lived too, you know, and all the things that she has been through. There's a lot more soul that goes into the records when she rhymes. And these MCs, you're listening again not because you missed what they said. It's because you want to hear what they said again. You know, and that's a big deal because a lot of times you miss what people say. Even the great MCs, you know what I mean? Sometimes because they were too deep and you really don't know those words. You don't really know the subject, what they're referring to, so you're fixing it in your mind wrong. With these MCs, you get what they're saying. But it's really great. And look, you also get stuff that you get dream matchups because they have Geppetto and it has Thurston Howell and Greasy on it. You know? That's a combo that is perfect. Two of the most clever, charismatic MCs in Brooklyn's history. You know, in Brooklyn history, we've said the most charismatic MCs. You're going to have Sean Price to me at the top, right? Let's just say if we're doing a list. I'm not going to make a list now. You got, if you're going to go as close as possible to one, is going to be Thurston Howell. And some people will pick Thurston Howell over him. To me, it's 1A, 1B. Because Thurston Howell's catalog is so long and his innovations are so unique. But what I'm saying is that of today's MCs, Greasy Amin is that guy. You know what I mean? Always clever, always dynamic, always fun. You know, I always get the Bismarcky feel when I listen to Greasy. I always get the that feel when I was listening to Old Dirty Bastard's first album. You know what I mean? Where, you know, you could do anything. It doesn't matter what you're doing. As long as it's whatever I want to do. And to have Thurston and Greasy on a track together and then playing these characters, he's supposed to be Rufus, whatever Rufus is doing, and Greasy is Tiny, and it's just a fun record. You know what I mean? It's just a fun record. There's so much on this. I have to listen to this again. I don't even I'm still trying to figure out how Napoleon the Legend, he came to be Foxy Coltrane. You know what I mean? But that's his character. And everybody got a character in here. And most of these are Team Demo beats, if not all. And Team Demo really, really knows how to make their break beats like power right through. You know what I mean? They bang. They work out your system. You know what I mean? And they work out your speakers. So even if they use a sample that is familiar to you, they're going to do it, and they might even justify it with better drums than what you originally heard it with. You know what I mean? I had heard this off air. It was a song playing while we were off air. And it's just a thought that I had, a random thought. But one of my favorite soul songs of all time is Willie Hutch's I Choose You, right? And everybody that samples that record, they almost always use the wrong drums or drums that I don't care for. And it always makes the sample feel like just what it is. You took a sample and you threw some drums. So it's like the meal doesn't come together. You know, the meal. You know, it doesn't fit together. Though it sounds like something was added to it. You know what I mean? Like you made a meal and then you add salt after you cooked it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't go well. You know what I mean? Putting the sugar after you made the oatmeal or whatever like that. You know what I mean? But Team Demo is great at merging the samples with unique drums, but making them feel natural, like they go together. You know, there's a science to that. That's why so many people are getting props for digging in the crates, but they can't make a good track with drums. And that's also why you're getting a lot of MCs that are whack or not suited. I didn't say whack. Let me take that back. Generally not suited, or would make much liver music if they had breaks on their shit. But the producers, they're not good at it. You know what I mean? Speaking of producers that I always love the drums they use, you know, is Aguilar. You know what I mean? Aguilar has an album, Francisco Blanco. And that's his character that he's playing. Another character-driven album. And the thing about this album, right? He's giving it skits. He's giving it a storyline. But one of the things about Aguilar, and I'm just going to keep this here, is that it's a good story. It's an intriguing story. It's not out of bounds, like something you never heard of. It could be predicted, the story, pretty much. But it's about the execution of how it sounds. And one of the things I always loved about Aguilar as a producer
is that he never really uses the drums that you expect on a sample, and he can make it work. He also doesn't have a distinct style that you can attach him to. You know what I mean? So, like, and that doesn't mean legends do that. Some legends can do like he's doing. Most legends, they actually don't. Like Primo is the ideal example. You know what I mean? Madlib is an example of what Aguilar, like Aguilar's vein, because Madlib doesn't really have a style. You know what I mean? You listen to Mad Villainy, and then you listen to the Freddie Gibbs albums, you don't know that he did those records unless you know the signature cues that he throws in there. It'll be the vocal samples and things like that he'll let you know it's him. But if you go by the beat itself and the music itself for the MC, you don't always know because his crates are deep. Aguilar does that here, and it's really well done. You know what I'm saying? I worried a lot last year that Aguilar would like dilute himself with so many albums released, but he actually hit with some real high peaks. And starting off the season with the 2021 album, that's how Aguilar started, which was very good. It was good. This one is even better. You know what I mean? So if you were buying an Aguilar, you want to get into Aguilar, get this one first. This is the way where you start. And speaking of EPs that are actually EPs, probably if we talk about great voices in hip hop, I got to talk about Nejma Nefertiti. She comes out. She's known. If you don't know her, she's on a lot of Napoleon the Legend cuts. And some of the Napoleon Legend's best albums, she's all over them, including the new one, The Hole in My Heart, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But I want to talk about Nejma first. The Harvest is the great album. She has a way of giving you the energy of a battle MC, even in songs that are actually with concepts, ideas, and execution. So all her songs have a live element to them. It isn't where this song has a concept and now we're slowing it down, we're losing some of the vibe. And she has such it's such a cute high pitch. And she has really great dexterity, you know what I mean? And of course she has all the vocal techniques, you know what I mean? She has breath control. She rhymes at really high speeds. She can go slower speeds. She can be introspective. She can rhyme in couplets, or she can rhyme in a more spoken word style. She could really do everything. But the thing is, though, is that the Harvest I really like the Harvest as a starting point for anyone, because in a very concentrated work, she gives you an album, a long player's worth of material, and it's a great introduction to the depth of her. You know, all of the themes that she has, all of the insight that she has, you know what I mean? And it's no coincidence that she's on so many Napoleon the Legend songs, you know what I mean? It's a really a great album, and possibly the best EP that I've heard. If I had to go EP, it's so hard to judge EPs now, you know what I mean? Because albums are 25 minutes long, so you judge it how you want to, you know what I mean? Also, if we're talking about getting into somebody, Al Divino, right? A lot of people have difficulty getting into Al Divino. He's an acquired taste, you know what I mean? Al Divino is a really dope MC, very live, very intense, and he knows how to use, just like S.STREET, that whole clique, they know what they're doing with ad-libs. They know how to augment their own verses with their own ad-libbing. But Al Divino's music that he makes is so avant-garde in tempo, in choppiness, that it's hard for people to get into, you know what I mean? And, you know, sometimes avant-garde music doesn't mean people don't like it. It means that people have a difficulty finding what moment would I play this. Because music is so, and it is pitched to us. Look at the YouTube Music app, for example. Music is pitched to us for situations. You know what I mean? We listen to music for situations. You know what I mean? So, aside from like party, workout, things like that, ambiance, where is the context to listen to someone that is avant-garde, and when you listen to it, you will hear something you've never heard before. there's very little context for that. There's no mood for that. You know what I mean? Unless you take hip hop as it should be, as a listening music. But Al Divino has an album out now with Grubby Paws producing. They just have the Roman numerals on it, 237. And that's how much they're charging for the album, though. They don't give a fuck, right? $237. And, I don't know what's worth $237, though. I would love for you to pay me $237 for my book. I think it's worth that. Fuck. And fuck you if you don't. You know what I mean? Because I put 237 fucking hours into that fucking book. You know what I mean? Right? But what I will say is this, is that if you have the album, you got your money's worth. You have something you could repeat. So if you're pissed off you paid that, you can play it enough, you'll get $237 worth. Because on Grubby Paws beats, they're progressive enough where they challenge Al Divino, but they've got that steady boom bap where it's a great way to get into his work through that album. You know what I mean? So I definitely would go with that album. And speaking of, just to make the click complete, Code 9 has a great album out now called Lavender Bass and Beauty. That's a crazy title. You know what I mean? It sounds like something in Bed Bath & Beyond section. You know what I mean? But it's smooth as hell. You know what I mean? And it's got it isn't eliminating break beats, but the beats and the drums are being played in there more as a bass groove. And the sample game is strong on this album, though. And Code 9, haven't heard him for years. With all the overloading MCs do, and hell, his clique, S.STREET, Al Divino, they give us a lot of work, and he hasn't. This album comes as a real treat because we haven't heard Code 9 that much in years. And he really rhymes strong on this, you know what I mean? He's a great MC. Unlike Al Divino, he's really more of a classical in the pocket MC. You know what I mean? So he's always been a great contrast going along with Divino and Esti. S.STREET, master of all tempos. You don't know what he's going to get. And then you got Code 9, who's always going to be in that groove pocket nicely. And Lavender Bass and Beauty, though, it really is a really well put together album, though. Those albums where you could feel like they took a lot of time with, you know what I mean? They put effort into it. Like they did things again. If they didn't, it's amazing. But it feels like that kind of record. You know what I mean? What else we got? There's so much stuff here. I'll put you on to our brother Spoda, right? Spoda has a new album out. I think Hobgoblin did the beats. I'm not sure. Let's check that out, though. But Spoda has an album. It's a short album, a concentrated album, and it's called The Truth Will Be Told. Right? And The Truth Be Told. Saying this shit all wrong. Shame on me. You know what I mean? But from what I'm seeing here, the production is by a lot of different people. But I know Hobgoblin did a couple of beats. You know what I mean? And the artwork is great. Spoda has a great energy. You know what I mean? And one of the last records that really impressed me, that I was blown away with, where I felt was a peak for Spoda, was State of Emergency last year. And I think he's matched that exactly on this one, truth be told. Spoda has that, because I hated the Dark Ages. I hated all that high treble, hardcore, all the stuff that was wrongly influenced. But if there's an MC that could be positively influenced by that type of music, it's Spoda. He has such an energy, and he's one of the great live MCs, you know what I mean? And in that clique, the Walkers and stuff, he really blends well, because all the records that he's in now are going to shoot them up 1,000-fold, in energy. It's something that people think you automatically have, but it's something that Spoda has worked on a lot. You know what I mean? and you're seeing him in an incredible prime now. So that's definitely a keeper, that album, though. All Spoda material now is essential, right? And I mentioned Hobgoblin. One of the best early producer albums with a lot of MCs is The Awakening. It has great album art. I love the album art. You know what I mean? That's what kept reminding me to go listen to it when I had it for a while. And man, he is a great producer. He picks he picks the right beats for the right MCs. Like 1520, it's got Jay Cyanide, so you know it's got to be live, energetic, a little bit more up tempo than normal today. He's got it. You know, he gives you the smoother stuff. He gives you the stuff to let people rhyme deeply, like he gave Supreme Cerebral for Death Wish. Just a great, great beat album, though. You can't be disappointed with that. And for producer-led albums, there haven't been. It's the only one I think of that has come out this year, a producer-led album. I know Stu Bangers has a real big one coming soon, but this one is tops right now. It's really great. You know, if you're into that, sometimes you get bored of just one MC. You want to hear like a lot of MCs, and you want to hear over a particular producer. Hobgoblin is that next guy. I didn't mention in detail Hole in My Heart. I'll probably talk about that as we go along, though. I might even share the verse I had, though, but I got to be on that. I had to work really hard on writing that song, the song I was on, G-Dep, because not only was Napoleon asking me to be on it, but he also said that Sky Zoo would be on it. So I was like, oh, shit. You know what I mean? I can only fuck this up. So my goal wasn't to try to outflow them. That's impossible. I'm not an MC. And I'm really working on doing spoken word stuff. So I really just tried to tell my story, you know what I mean? And that's why Sky Zoo being a BKMC from the more popular, known, infamous places of Brooklyn, and Napoleon the Legend being a Brooklyn embraced MC, just like Guru. That's why I started out with 88 that other summer. You know what I mean? Try to give you a different perspective of a Brooklyn brother out there. You know what I mean? And it was a lot of fun to make. You know what I mean? It's just a real honor to be on that. And this whole album is crazy. Speaking of personal stories, the lead single, the title track, I mean, you know what's great about that song? Napoleon tells his story so vividly. And I'm going to say this as a journalist. It's so dope that there are parts of that story that I was there to document. So parts of that story get to the point where I'm there documenting it. Like when he talks about that first show with Pharoah Monch, where he's opening for Pharoah Monch, that, if I remember correctly, that was at SOB's, and I was there. You know what I mean? I remember talking to him about how he was, going further, and he was about to open up for Pharoah Monch. You know what I mean? And by the way, Pharoah Monch killed that set. You know what I mean? He killed that, as well as Napoleon. But again, Nejma Nefertiti has a great back and forth song called Culture. Again, she's so good, just like Napoleon, at rhyming about deeper things without losing the MC technical skills of it. You know what I mean? Just great stuff. You know what I mean? Great stuff all over this record. Oh, yeah. And now we get to bangers, though. If you want a straight banger, though, definitely you got to check out The Ruler Gods by Rawmatic. He's on the beats. Raph Almighty from Dirt Platoon and G-Stats from Bankai Fam. What a surprise team up here. What a surprise team up. Two of my favorite hardcore MCs with the gravelly, grimy, gravelly voice of different levels. You know what I mean? So Raph is probably on this octave, and then G-Stats is a little bit lower, in the octaves. You know what I mean? But you want to hear the knowledge of self and the street raps and hardcore boom bap revivalist stuff. And I say revivalist because it's not just sounding like something else. You know what I mean? It's great stuff. Rawmatic really knows how to choose his breaks. You know what I mean? And it's a winning record. People will overlook this record, but if you need that raw, That's that raw. You know what I mean? And another great raw record. They're all always good. A quick album from and you know, I guess this would be an album. 7 well-sized songs. Ill Conscious with Marshtini. I think Marshtini's on the beats. Import Export. You know, I'm thinking it's just going to be bars, battle bars and stuff. And there's so many song concepts, so many ideas. I love what he was doing in building on the knowledge itself. So Ill Conscious, man, the God is always coming through. You know what I mean? He's a leader. You know, people look at Griselda, you know, as being that modern retro. Ill Conscious has to be in that lane as well. You know what I mean? Of reviving, and I like to call it revivalist instead of just retro, because it's not just biting or just copying it better. You know, like Buena Vista Social Club. Buena Vista Social Club would be retro, you know, Cuban son music. You know, and of course they're using the legendary singers, you know, the old time singers. So it would be hard to not do that. But this is more revivalist, you know, where you're seeing updates to it, but it's definitely seeing the old ethos, you know. And Import Expert is really a strong album. Only gave that one listen, but I enjoyed it, and well worth your price. Gallo Point is one of the best beat makers out there today, but also because he's a great sample man, and I think we could make the strong case that his best, you know, his most fluid work is when he makes albums with Smooth, you know, and Smooth really is his namesake. It's very difficult to describe him without using his own name to describe him. He's a slow flow MC that is always in the pocket, always in the pocket, always knows how to inflect, but doesn't over inflect. You know what I mean? Has great intonation, can really smooth, and he has a great cadence. You know what I mean? And really, honestly, Smooth doesn't really make a bad record. All his records are great. You know what I mean? So if you don't have Smooth records, you just go from the new and work your way back. And again, so much quality music that I could easily say this is one of the best records, but all of these records I mentioned are all stellar. They're all stellar. You know what I mean? And last but not least, we'll definitely end with the God Planet Asia, who always continues to make works with Dirty Digs. It's almost unfair to compare Planet Asia to any MC because he's on such a peak. He really is the top. He really is the barometer of this whole shit. And with Black Shaman, if you really are a Planet Asia enthusiast, as you should be, there's a slightly different tempo and cadence that he's catching here. And I've yet to describe it yet because I've only given it 1 or 2 listens. You know, some songs 2 listens and the whole thing once. But this Black Shaman album, Dirty Digs, it's almost like it could create a new universe because their crate game is up there with the Mad Libs, it's up there with the Alchemist, it's up there with the Primos, Pete Rocks. It's really high. You know what I mean? And they can make records that sound totally different than anything else they ever gave him, and that's what he did here. It's really a incredible record. You know what I mean? Incredible record. You know? And this would be a year-end review. This would be a year-end review, and we're not even finished. We just barely passed 10 weeks of this year. So, you know what I mean? I know I missed some. I know I missed Bugsy the God's album, which I really enjoyed. Substance 810, that's a guy on the rise. Soul Zalis of New Juricans has an album out, really dope. Him Low and Gallo Point, another Gallo Point gem. You know what I mean? They give you the best. You could compare the contrast with a battle bar MC like Him Low from the Booze Brothers to Smooth, who's really a groove, slow flow street MC. But Hey, until next time, there'll be a lot more stories to tell, writings to recite, and records to rewind and reminisce. A lot more records to rewind and reminisce. I'm your host, Sunni Zala, a.k.a. S.TREET. And as always, the Power Right Show is a never respect fake broadcast. Peace.